Hello, everyone. Welcome to lesson 39 of the theory class. We're going to go ahead and get started. And today we do not have an evaluation because it is going to be combined with lesson 38. So 38 and 39 are combined. So we're going to wait until we're done with 39. So once you come into lesson 40, then I will do that evaluation. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. 39.1 is going to be a review. So kind of nice that we have a review here. This is reviewing names and spellings using the asterisk key, which is your middle key here. And again, we've gone over this in a whole lesson, but it's definitely a review. So let's go ahead and look at these names and spellings. Line 1, it says peck. And just a reminder, anything that is one syllable, you're going to flag, just so it doesn't conflict with anything that could be possible. So we just go ahead and flag anything that is one syllable that is a proper noun. So peck would be flagged, P-E-K with a flag. Now notice there's a comma after that, so you're going to strike your RBGS for your comma, and then you're going to stitch P asterisk, E asterisk at the same time, C asterisk, K asterisk. And then go ahead and separate each one with a period so that it's easy to read. When you go back and read your notes, it'll be easy to separate each one. Okay? So again, if it's a name that you're not really sure how it's spelled, it's okay. You write it phonetically, but then you're going to be spelling it correctly. So that way, if that were a test, and let's say North has 2 H's in it. You know, sometimes we get some crazy spellings with names. It's probably going to come up as N-O-R-T-H, but then you would have to go in, you know, if you stitch it correctly, N-O-R-T-H-H, let's say it had 2 H's, then you would go in and fix North, the first word of North, okay? So that's if that were a test, all right? So our software is only so smart and only does so much for us, and we have to still go in and correct things. All right, but we do know that after the word and before the stitching, we do know that we have a comma, so strike your comma. Okay, so basically 39.1 is a complete review, and I suggest that you run through the alphabet before you even start this part of the homework. I think that it's important to get in the habit of practicing your stitching along with your using your comma. You know, anytime you start and you get on your machine, if you just run through the alphabet A through Z and you do it once, striking your asterisks, and then do it again, striking your RBGS, not only is it going to help your fingers warm up, but anytime that comes up, any stitching or any initials, you're gonna, it's like you've already warmed up, and your fingers just get to know where to go. So I suggest you do that every time you get on your machine. Okay, I still do that. So go through the alphabet and stitch it. Go through the alphabet again and strike your RBGS for your initials. Okay, so let's see, we talked about flagging one syllable names, use the comma after the name, and make sure that you strike the period after each, after you're done stitching that names, just so it separates, all right? So that's pretty much it for 39.1, definitely a review there, which is great. Good to have before the final. Let's go on over to 39.2, we've got practice sentences that focus on our stitching. And remember, the only time we stitch is when somebody spells out a word or a name. That's the only time we stitch. We don't ever take it upon ourselves to start stitching unless somebody says, my name is Jill, J-I-L-L, or I live on Main Street, M-A-I-N. Anytime they're spelling it out, you're going to stitch it, and that's how we show that somebody spelled it out, is by using the hyphen between each letter of the name or the word. Okay, so let's look at number 1, sentence 1 on 39.2. It says, my name is Harold Stetson, comma, strike your comma. You see the comma, so you strike it. Now, if I were just reading to you, and if I don't say a comma and you don't know it's there, you don't have to put it. But then if it were a test, you would put the comma before any time before you stitch. Okay, and if you're having a hard time, if somebody is dictating to you and you're in class and you're having a hard time keeping up, then don't worry about the comma. You can always add it if it's a speed test. All right, so let's look at this first sentence. Notice that Harold, of course, our H is capitalized, but the rest of the letters in Harold are lowercase. But then Stetson, we've got a capital S, and then after that, T-E-T-S-O-N are all lowercase. Now, if this were a test, you are going to have to go into the edit mode, and you're going to have to take out the hyphen between the D and the S. Take out the hyphen between the after the last letter of the first name and before the first letter of the last name. Okay, again, the software is only so smart. It's not going to know to take that comma or that hyphen out. And you're also going to have to capitalize the S on Stetson. It doesn't distinguish where a last name starts. Okay, so you do have to do that. Okay, so just a heads up, always proofread very carefully. Okay, sometimes I'll get students that ask me, well, we have software, isn't that what it does? Well, it only does so much, and you still have to proofread and edit. Okay, all right. Let's see here. Let's go down to line 11. It says the teacher's name is Stephanie Graves, comma, G-R-A-V-E-S. Teachers, just a little reminder, that's an apostrophe S. You're going to write that as T-A-E-C-H. Come back for, we're going to come back for E-R, and then we come back for A-E-Z for the apostrophe S. Okay, so don't forget that. If it's possessive, it's the name of the teacher, then we need apostrophe S. We use our A-E-Z. Okay. So let's look at let's look at line 12. It says she spells her name, comma, S-A-N-D-I, comma, not S-A-N-D-Y. So again, you're stitching that. You see the hyphens, you're stitching. Same with line 14. My brother's name is Brian, comma, B-R-Y-A-N, comma, not B-R-I-A-N. Okay. All right. And moving on over to 39.3. This is where our new lesson is going to start. We're going to tackle fractions today. And you will hear fractions from time to time, especially as a court reporter. A lot of times you'll hear fractions in reports that are being read and things like that. I had a lot of fractions once in a deposition from a toxicology report. There are a lot of fractions. So we're going to learn how to write those today. Okay? And the great news is you're writing exactly what you hear. So let's read part A. Put my page over here on 39.3. Okay, it says, for the first number of the fraction, use the following outline so the number is followed by a hyphen. So we have to tell our software we're talking about a fraction and we need the hyphen there. So the way we do that is we flag it. So that's how we tell our software we're talking about a number dealing with a fraction. We are going to use our flag here. So let's look at 1. 1 is W-U-N with the flag. 2, T-W-O with the flag. So if I say 2/3, I'm going to strike I'm going to flag the first number in the fraction. Okay. 3, T-H-R long E with the flag. 4, F-O-U-R with the flag. 5, F long I-V with the flag. 6, S-I-X with the flag. 7 is S-E-V with the flag. So SEV, S-E-V with the flag. 8 is long A-G-T with the flag. 9, N long I-N with the flag. And 10, T-E-N with the flag. So just remember, we flag all of the first numbers that come in the fraction so that we tell our software we need the hyphen. Okay. And let's take a look at this. Notice that all of these numbers are spelled out. Fractions are always spelled out unless it has a whole number. And we're going to talk about whole numbers in just a minute. But right now, I wanted to kind of cover that. So they're always going to be spelled out. So notice that, you know, all of these we're spelling out. We're not using numbers. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and go down to part B. It says for the second number in the fraction, use these outlines. You can kind of think of them as a brief kind of, okay? Some of them are very self-explanatory, so let's look at what we have here. Half, H-A-F, okay? Now this is the second number in the fraction. Third, T-H-I-R-D. Fourth, F-O-U-R-T, fort. Now, the reason why we are writing it as F-O-U-R-T, we're throwing in the T there, is because we need to tell our software we're talking about T-H, fourth, okay? And we want that word, we want the number as a word, okay? So we can't use 4E because then it would give you the number 4, okay, T-H, and we don't want that. We want it as a spelled word, so that's why we are learning these, okay? Fifth, F-I-G-T, there's our T again. Sixth, S-I-K-T, again, we need to tell our software we need a T-H at the end of that number. Seventh, S-E-F-T. Eighth, Y-long-A-G-T, yate. Ninth, N-long-I-N-T. 10th, T-E-G-T, 10th. Okay, so this is the second number in the fraction. Okay. All right, now let's look at the fourth line there. It says quarter, K-W-A-U-R for quarter. Okay, which is pretty easy to remember. Quarter. Right. Moving over to the next page, 39.4. This is a practice drill writing these fractions. So if we have 1/5, don't forget you're going to flag 1, okay, W-U-N with the flag, and then fifth, F-I-G-T, okay, you need that T-H, so don't forget that G-T there. 9/10. You're going to write 9 as it's flagged. And then tenths, T-E-G-T. Now notice this says tenths, plural. So anytime you have a fraction that's plural, you just simply come back for the final Z in a separate stroke. 9/10. Okay? So make sure you come back for any plural flat fractions, come back for that Z by itself. Okay? And notice how all of these are spelled out as words and they're hyphenated. You always have to hyphenate a fraction. Let's say your software doesn't do it for you. You have to go in, if that were a test, in the edit mode and add a hyphen. Make sure that it's spelled out, 1/5. Okay? Now, if for some reason your dictionary is not giving you fractions from these outlines, then you can go in and add these outlines to your dictionary so that they come up, okay? From using the outlines from 39.3a and b. All right, so we've got 3/7, 5/6, and some of them, quite a few of them have plurals, so you just come back for final Z. Okay, 1/8, 4/9, 7/10, 3/4, 6/10, 2/3, 4/6. Let's go back to 2/3. I think sometimes that one might be a little, you're going to want to throw that Z in at the same, in the same stroke, but you in theory, you want to come back for that Z, okay? So 2 would be T-W-O with the flag, and then you're going to come back for third, T-H-I-R-D, thirds, and then come back for final Z, 2/3, okay? So I think the rest of these are self-explanatory. Okay, we haven't gotten to the larger fractions yet, the whole numbers. That's 39.4. 39.5 is a sentence drill using our fractions. Let's read the first sentence. It says, 1/2 the skill of court reporting is 9/10 mental. Okay, so just don't forget to flag the first number in your fraction so that you get the hyphen. Okay, and again, I want you to think of these outlines as briefs. Go through and learn those, okay? Third or second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on. Okay. All right. Let's look at sentence 2 in 39.5. The lobotomy left her 3/4 less violent and 6/7 less intelligent. Line 3. Mr. Limbaugh's opinions are 1/5 honest mistakes and 4/5 baloney. Okay. And again, the rest of these sentences are pretty self-explanatory. There's really nothing I need to bring to your attention. Just again, follow, keep those outlines handy. It will help you. Okay. If you have any questions, let me know. Okay, let's go to 39.6. And again, we're going to talk about complicated fractions in part B. But first, let's talk about part A. All right. We're going to learn the punctuation, the slash, or the virgule, or oblique, or diagonal. And anytime you have this, best known as the slash, we use them a lot with dates. If somebody says, I was born on 3/1/82, we would use the slash to indicate that it would be 3/ or oi, 1 oi 82. And the way we write the slash, it's very easy, is just by doing oi, just one time. Okay? So that is how we write our slash to indicate dates. All right, so let's look at line 1, 5/4/63. So you're going to write that as your 5, and then oi, 4, oi, 63. And then go ahead and separate each one with a period. That way it's easy to go back and compare to see how you did with each one. Okay, let's look at the next one, 8/17/99. So 8, oi, 17, oi, 99. And make sure you strike two numbers at the same time if possible, like 17. That is together. That's we're talking about the day. So we want to, and 1 comes before the 7, so you strike them together. All right? So those are our practice dates. Let's look at, moving on down to line B. We also are going to use the oi anytime we have complicated fractions. So let's look at number 1. The first first fraction in number 1. This says 43 and 15/32. So you'll notice there's a space between the 43 and the 15. And that is because we want to differentiate between the whole fraction, the whole number, and then the fraction. Okay, so the whole number is 43. And it will be spoken as 43 and. So this is one of the times where you're going to write and, because you're going to strike 43, come back for and then you're going to write 15 together over. Now, when you hear over just simply means you're going to strike oi, because oi is going to give you that slash. Okay, but they're going to say over 32. All right, and then when you go to transcribe this in a test, you can use all numbers because you've got a whole number before the fraction. Okay, just make sure you have a space between the 43 and the 15 because you need to differentiate. Otherwise, it's going to look like 4,315, okay, over 32. So you want to make sure that you have a space there. Let's look at the next one over in line 1. It says 146 and 21 over 39. Again, 146. So you're going to strike 1. It's okay. I want you to strike HUN for 100. 46 for 6. And SKP, 21, 2, 1, OI for over, 39, 3, 9 together. This is one of the only times where you're going to write something, but you're going to take it out when you go to transcribe it. Okay, so when you write the word and, it's to help you to know where the whole number ends and the fraction starts. But you're actually going to take that out, okay? You're going to write it because you're going to hear it, but then you take it out when you're in edit mode. So then instead of the and, you'll just have a space there. Okay? So again, let me know if you have any questions about those. You're not going to hear complicated fractions too much, but we like to cover them just in case. You definitely will hear like 1/3, 3/4, and so on. Okay. All right. And again, let's look at line 3 and go to the third one over. So this would be spoken as 385 and 31 over 64. So you would write HUN for 100, 85. And then for some reason, if you get all words, then you're going to change it to the number 385. And take out the and replace it with the space, 31/64. Okay. And again, if your dictionary doesn't recognize the OI, then you're going to add that as the slash. Okay. All right, let's go to 39.7. This includes, these are the sentences that focus on the slash, and it does include the phrase and or. So anytime somebody says and or, you're going to write and, oi, or, because you want the slash. Okay, let's look at the first sentence. Plant flowers and or vegetables this spring. So you're going to write and, oi, or vegetables this spring. Line 2. We will arrive at 6 p.m. on 3, oi, 12, oi, 23, period. Line 3. Where were you on 9, oi, 25, oi, 18, in Iraq? And let's see if there's anything I need to bring to your attention. I think everything there looks good. Just a little reminder, line 7 where it says Neil A. Armstrong, A, you're going to strike your A along with the RBGS at the same time because it's an initial. Okay. All right. Let's go over to 37.8. We've got some new briefs. Let's go over those. Further, F-U-R-T, FERT is our first one. And just so you know, this further, we've got farther, further. So further is not measurable. So if I were to say I have no further questions, it's not measurable. So that's how you know it's further, F-U-R-T. Farther can be measured. It is farther than a mile. So it can be measured. And that one simply is written out. Farther, F-A-R-G-T, come back for E-R. Okay? But this, we're talking about further. I have no further questions. Okay? Then we have anxious, A-N-G-S. Behind, H, short I-N-D. And that is a short I. You don't want to have a conflict with hind, like the cat's hind legs. That is spelled with a long I, hind. That's why behind is short I. Then we have beyond, Y-O-N-D, yond. Condition, initial K, final N-G-S, condition. Corporation, Korpgs. Better, BER, burr. Verdict, VERD, bird. Quarter, KWAUR, whore. Thank you, TU. Yeah, YAEF, yaff. Counsel, KOUNS, counts. Begin, initial GIN, gin. Don't write it with a J, it'd be gin. Began, GAN, gan. Begun. Begun is going to be initial G, final N. You can't use the U because that would be gun. I put it in parentheses so that you don't forget that. Gun is GUN. So begun is just initial G, final N. And also, be careful with begin. Begin is written with GIN, but again, I don't know if you remember, but hopefully you do, again is GEN. So we've got again, GEN, and begin, GIN. So there's only one letter that separates those two. So don't get them mixed up or don't misstroke it. Okay, so those are our briefs, our new briefs. Let's see. Getting a message here. Okay. Looking on over at 39.9. We've got a brief drill with our new briefs. And again, you want to just separate each one with a comma. So it's easy to go back and read those. Separate each one with a comma. And 39.10, we've got a sentence drill. Let's look at, let's see. If you look at line 12, second sentence over, it says, who is beginning? So we have our new brief for begin, GIN. So beginning, you just come back again for the final G. 2 strokes. Okay, I know some people will say, oh, can I just do it in 1 stroke? But in theory, you want to come back for that final G. In speeds, it's up to you, as long as you have clean notes. All right, moving on over to 39.10, continues on the next page. And all of those look great. Don't forget if there's a comma there, such as line 23 where it says, yeah, comma, I went to, you're going to strike your comma. Okay. 39.11, this is a review, writing numbers under 10. Okay, so it's just like what we just covered with our fractions, except we're not striking, or we're not flagging it, because we're talking about just regular numbers under 10 that we want spelled out. Okay, and there will be times when you want the number to be spelled out instead of a number. All numbers that are 10 and under need to be spelled out, unless it's an address. Every once in a while you'll see a crazy address that's, 10 and under, which is kind of odd, but there is one neighborhood close to me that has that. The numbers are, you've got like 6, Crystal Way. So in that case, you could use the number, but it doesn't come up very often. All right, so that's 39.11. 39.12, we've got practice sentences. Again, they're all very self-explanatory. There's nothing really I need to cover there. Okay. 39.13, we've got consonant compounds. And today we're focusing on final NT and final ND with plural. So NT, and then we have to come back for final Z, and final ND, come back for final Z in a separate stroke. So we have contents, relents, and that re is a short E, hunts, intense, residence, dropping that I in the middle, that middle vowel there. Consents, plants, rents, refunds, intends, rends, contends, sends, binds, long I, rescinds, funds, tense, hints, pints, long I, dents, rants, haunts, there's our broad A-U, pants, vents. You can either say aunts or ants, A-U, hands, ends, extends, pawns, has a ah sound, but it's spelled with an O, so we keep it with an O. Tens, lens, bands. All right. 39.14, we've got practice sentences with our consonant compounds. And again, there's really nothing to point out to you. Everything is pretty self-explanatory. You know, let's see here. There's one thing I think I saw that I may want to show you here. Oh, okay. Let's look at line 4, second sentence over. We've got ghost. So ghost is going to be written as initial G, H, long O, F, T, ghost. Now, if you were to write it as just G, long O, F, T, that would be okay. That would be all right. But really, you should add the H, G, H, long O, F, T, ghost. Right? And everything else looks good. I'm going to go ahead and get started with our Q&A. I'm going to read the first one at 50. The second one will be at 60. So you guys are hopefully getting used to the speed for when you transition out of theory into speeds. You'll be somewhat used to it a little bit. It's going to seem fast, but I promise you, the more you practice, the easier it's going to get. I promise. And each time you move into a new speed, it's going to seem fast. You're going to think, oh, I'm never going to get this speed. But you practice, 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 and then all of a sudden one day it starts clicking, and think of it as a race, and you just think, oh, I'm never going to be able to run 3 miles ever. And then you start training, and then, wow, you run 3 miles. And then let's say you want to run 5 miles. Oh, I'm never going to be able to run 5 miles. But you train, and then all of a sudden you're running 5 miles. And then you want to move to 10 miles, and so on. Then you want to do a half marathon, and then you want to do a full marathon. Each time you hit those milestones, you may think, I'm never going to get there. But you will. If you practice, you will get there. Okay? Just remember that. Okay. I always kept like a journal, a log, because it was kind of, after a while, kind of funny in a way that I would go back and read, and I would say like, oh, I'm never going to get 120. And then, you know, I would look back when I was in 140, 160 and say, wow, look, you know, I was so down on myself, and now that speed's pretty easy. So if it helps, journal, okay? All right, so this is going to start with the court, and you're going to hear, and you have a copy of this to practice with. I also want you to take a good look at it to see how it is punctuated, how the format is. You need to get used to that too. You don't want your speed test to be disqualified because they are not the right format. If you're having an issue with your software not correctly, with the tabs and the margins, you need to let Robert know, and he can help you with your software. Okay, get that done now before you get into speeds. Okay, so excuse me. I want to direct your attention down below. Look at this Q&A that I'm going to be reading to you. Down below, you'll notice this is the court, the witness, the court, the witness, the court, the witness. That's because the court is having colloquy with the witness, meaning they're just clarifying something. They're either clarifying it for themselves, or they're clarifying something for the jury so that the jury's not confused. And this happens a lot. So anytime the court jumps in and starts asking questions, This is how you are going to you're going to transcribe it. The court, the witness, the court, the witness, okay? All right. So again, the first time we do this, we are going to read this at 50 words a minute. Then I'm going to read it again at 60. Okay? All right. Here we go. Ready? Will you give us your name for the record, and please spell the last name? Paul Hamilton. Hamilton. You may proceed, Mr. Preston. Mr. Hamilton, where do you live? I live at 2415 Forest Avenue. And what is your occupation, please? I am a lawyer. Okay. Now, on December the 13th, 2017, at about 5 o'clock, were you driving an automobile north on Archer Avenue? Yes, sir. Where were you coming from? From my office. Was anyone in the car with you? No, sir. Okay. Now, where were you going to? I was going home. You had made this trip many times before? I object. Speculating, Your Honor. Sustained. Rephrase your question, Mr. Preston. All right. Had you made this trip many times before, Mr. Hamilton? Oh, yes. How many times would you say? At least 200, Your Honor. Now, how was the weather that night? It was a dark, rainy night. Did there come a time when the car ahead of you came to a stop? Yes, sir. What kind of a stop did the car ahead of you make? Objection. Overruled. Please answer, Mr. Hamilton. The stop was very sudden. All right. Then what happened? I jammed on my brakes and tried to turn to avoid a collision. You tried to turn to avoid a collision? Yes, Your Honor. Which way did you turn your wheel? To the right. Why did you turn to the right? I turned to the right because there was no traffic in that lane, and I knew I would not damage any car or injure anybody. All right. Again, that was a long one. So if you felt like you were starting to get fatigued, that's okay. That's very normal. I just want to point out a few things. Hopefully for collision, you wrote it as K-L-I shun, G-S. Okay. This is also a good point to make here. You need to keep your notebook handy, and after you practice Q&A, or even if it's a drill or whatever it may be, if you have a hard time with something, a word, whatever it is, write it down after it's over, and that way you can practice it so the next time you hear it, it doesn't cost you time. Okay, so write down any of those words that may have caused you to pause. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and read this now at 60. Okay. And there's a lot of sign changes here, so keep that in mind too. We only count the words, we don't count sign changes. So the more sign changes, the more keys you're having to push that aren't counted. All right, here we go. Ready? Will you give us your name for the record? And please spell the last name. Paul Hamilton. Hamilton. You may proceed, Mr. Preston. Mr. Hamilton, where do you live? I live at 2415 Forest Avenue. And what is your occupation, please? I am a lawyer. Okay. Now on December the 13th, 2017, at about 5 o'clock, were you driving an automobile north on Archer Avenue? Yes, sir. Where were you coming from? From my office. Was anyone in the car with you? No, sir. Okay. Now, where were you going to? I was going home. You had made this trip many times before? I object. Speculating, Your Honor. Sustained. Rephrase your question, Mr. Preston. All right. Had you made this trip many times before, Mr. Hamilton? Oh, yes. How many times would you say? At least 200, Your Honor. Now, how was the weather that night? It was a dark, rainy night. Did there come a time when the car ahead of you came to a stop? Yes, sir. What kind of a stop did the car ahead of you make? Objection. Overruled. Please answer, Mr. Hamilton. The stop was very sudden. All right. Then what happened? I jammed on my brakes and tried to turn to avoid a collision. You tried to turn to avoid a collision? Yes, Your Honor. Which way did you turn your wheel? To the right? Why did you turn to the right? I turned to the right because there was no traffic in that lane, and I knew I would not damage any car or injure anybody. All right. So just a little point here that I want to make. There was one part where I started to say something and then I ended up saying the right word, but don't let that ever cause you to stumble. Just know that we have everything recorded, and if that were a test in speeds, and if that happens, we make a little note and we always go back and listen to the recording. So if that were a test, just know that we listen to the recordings and we know if we've said a word out of context, you know, it just write what you hear, and then you transcribe whatever it is that you hear. Just like when you're out on the job, you're going to write everything you hear, no matter what it is, whether or not it makes sense or not. Okay, that's not for you to decipher. You just write what you hear. All right, and that goes all the way through school with you and to the test as well. You hear something that doesn't make sense, you still write it. Okay. All right. So if you got tired with that, that's okay. That was pretty long, and we read that at 50 and again at 60. So please go back and listen to that over and over. Practice both 50 words a minute, 60 words a minute, and you can't do it too many times. So this is helping you to get ready for speeds. And I will see you soon in the read back portion of lesson 39. Have a great day.